Hello everybody. I hope you're having a great week so far. This will be my last installment of videos for the action research proposal. And we covered process last time, so we've got three um, main elements left, three sections left. And the first one is data collection and analysis. And it says explain the kinds of data that you collected. And y'all, if you hear me interchange, I'm sorry. I say data, I say data. It's probably should be more often should be data, but forgive me if I interchange. So explain the kinds of data you collected or you would collect either in the text or in the appendix, which means as you are writing out just in narrative form right here, you can explain your text or explain your data, what kind of data you would collect, and if it's like an interview or survey questions, you wouldn't necessarily want to write that out and include this in the text part of the paper. You can, but usually you can just refer to it and then put it in the appendix. And as I showed you earlier when we were talking about the process, you would actually put the word appendix in parentheses and whether it was appendix A, B, C, or D. So you want to include any of those types of instruments that you would use. And when we talk about that, and I should say this because I throw that around when I say instrument, maybe, that's some of that lingo that you don't know. But an instrument is simply the way you will collect it. Will it be through surveys? Will it be through interviews? Will it be test scores? Will it be observations? So those are all the way that you would collect it, and the instrument would be the survey, would be the test, would be the interview questions. Those are all the instruments that you use. So when we talk about data collection and analysis, if you are not able, because remember we're 5 weeks into this, or 6 weeks into this now, and most of you are not going to have the opportunity to collect everything and analyze it. Research is a long process, so you're going to tell me what kind you would collect if you had the opportunity. And you're also going to tell me how you would analyze it if you had the chance. A lot of you, if you're using quantitative data, you may use Excel because most people are familiar with Excel, Microsoft Excel. If you are more skilled in research and analyzing data, then you might use SPSS or you might use Minitab. For me, on a doctoral level, you typically use SPSS. So you would say, how would you analyze this? Quantitatively, that will be how you analyze it. If you're looking at qualitative, then you would take all the information and, you look for trends, you look for chunks. Say if you're looking at student behavior and you're looking at a certain strategy within the classroom, and you use this strategy to help them with classroom management, and you found that the majority of them, they were able to stay focused, or they were able to concentrate more. You'll see those chunks of data and that's what you would look at when you're looking at qualitative. So you're not gonna, that's how you analyze it qualitatively. Quantitatively, it's going to be some form of program like SPSS, Excel, or Minitab. So explain the kinds of data that you collected or would collect. You either include it within the text, but I recommend that you include it in the appendix. And also how you would analyze it. And let me say, if as you get to traditional research, when you use these instruments, you don't want it just to be something that you've made up, a survey that you've made up. It really needs to be a valid instrument that you use. And when it's really rigorous research, then we ask, that they ask that you show how this instrument was validated. And usually you'll be able, excuse me, to find some kind of research on the validation. Or if you just make the instrument up, you may have 2 to 3 professionals that will look over your instrument, and they will validate it and say, yes, it's valid. For action research, you will not do that. But just for future, while I'm here and while we're talking about it, and if you can, for action research, get your hands on an instrument or, a standardized test has already been validated, obviously. If you can use those, it certainly adds to the validity and reliability of your results. So going on to results, and after I finish with this, I'm going to put you on pause a minute, and I'm going to go to that sample that I've given you just to show what this student put. But results, if you're able to conduct the research, find a way to present your results. Go back to your original question. What answer did your findings suggest? And what you like to do is just go over what you found, go over your results, and then relate them back to the question. If you've got one research question, restate that question and state whether your results answered it. If you've got several that you're looking at, then you want to make sure that you're able to answer both questions, because that's the reason why we're doing this. We're looking to answer questions. So you want your results to be able to answer those questions. Since this is action research, you're not going to go in depth with results, and it can get very complicated, especially quantitatively. And I don't expect you to go into that kind of depth, but go into as much as you can. And Excel, although it's elementary as far as looking at data and analyzing data, it can get you some valuable results. And I would say if you know how to run a table or a graph in Excel, it's excellent to include in this section, in the results section. And again, if you're not able to collect it, predict your results. What would you expect to find? And just explain the reason why you think you will find this. It may be something in the literature. You may see trends in the literature that you've been looking through. So finally, implications for future educational practice. How do you envision your research being used by yourself or other colleagues? What difference will it make in your instruction? And in this area, you know how I pound home that I don't want you to use first person, but I will allow you to use I, me, my in this section, and tell how you think it can be used by yourself, your colleagues, and what difference it would make in your instruction. And also, what new questions might have arisen from this research? What direction might you go in? So I'm going to put you on pause just for a minute and go over to that sample, and we're going to look at what she did really quick. Okay, data collection and analysis. And if you remember, this is supposed to be indented, but I said this is not perfect. So she actually discusses that there are 3 different types of qualitative data that she will collect, and this allows for triangulation, which is always a great thing when you're doing qualitative. Observation, interview, and document review. And she goes on to actually quote the book. So she has included appendices here, and she's included the interview, and it's the band director and student volunteers that were interviewed. And I'll skip down there to those appendices in a minute. But here again, she gives a post-study interview. That's her Appendix 8. And she also uses notes, and she separates it and she codes it. So look, when you're looking at qualitative, without me going into too much detail about qualitative, look at that coding section and look in your book, in your textbook that speaks specifically to either quantitative or qualitative, to get some ideas in that area. And she said, although there was no actual data collected, she predicts that the atypical student, once they're comfortable in an inclusion setting, will experience greater progress in inclusion than in the resource room, given that they offer part-time musical support as needed. And remember, this student was trying to bring special needs students into a regular music classroom. And she bases a lot of it on past research, the research that she did, and then implications on the future. The research will be used as part of rationale for inclusive music education, because it will show that inclusive music can be more effective than separating music education. It has a positive effect on musical learning outcomes, has a positive effect on attitudes. So those are the things that she expects to find. Now you'll have a separate references page. That will be your next section. And then here are her appendices. And we went over that process. You do have to get permission. You get permission from the school, you get permission from the parents, you get permission from the teachers. And she did a pre-study interview, she did an interview during the study, and then she did a post. So these are all included as appendices. So please email me if you have any questions, and I can't stress the importance. At the end, as we get closer to the end, probably week 8, I'm going to take all of these videos and I'm going to post them one final time. If you want to watch them all in a row, it may take you a while, but it'll just kind of ease your mind and let you go back through and see exactly what I was looking for. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Email me if you need anything, and thanks a bunch.